checking for the live stream on YouTube. Facebook is still acting up. They'll post a live stream, but after I finish, it's gone.
Okay.
So we're live on YouTube. Hold on one second. Double check. Dontaye, do another sound check.
What's going on? This is Dontaye Carter with Beyond the Brand on Hits 92.3.
We good?
Get the notification.
All right, about to go into the intro, Dontaye.
Okay. You can use the headphones if you want. I don't like using them, but
Does that help?
I noticed that. You gotta use your headphones.
I don't like them.
Will it mess with how I look?
What's up? This is Dontaye Carter with Beyond the Brand on Hits 92.3. It's brought to you by Carter Media Group and TOV Digital Media. And hey, if you're checking us out on YouTube, please like, subscribe, comment, share, and let's get this information out to everybody. Today, I'm just really excited to have one of my sisters from the highest of 7 hills, right? FAMU is what I'm talking about. That's where I graduated from. That's what I love, and I love being able to spotlight people who are doing amazing things from the Hill. We have Tequila Smith here, and she is the founder of SEM Link, a nonprofit that is really engaging our youth when it comes to math and all the other STEM related programs. So we're really excited about that. And I told Tequila we were talking about SEM, and I was like, the name behind it is too long, so I'm going to let her share it with y'all.
Thank you so much for having me, fellow Rattler.
Woo woo!
Got to have the HBCU Rattler love.
Yeah.
And so I am the founder and executive director of Science, Engineering, and Mathematics Link Incorporated,
That's
better
right.
known as SEM Link, and it's a nonprofit that I started here in Atlanta, as the kids would say, in Zone 3.
Zone 3, Z3.
From working at Sylvan Hills Middle School. I'm a chemical engineer.
Wow.
And I was working at the school talking to kids about what they wanted to be when they grew up, and none of them wanted to be STEM professionals. So as an engineer, it broke my heart. Like, these kids are brilliant.
Yeah.
And so I started to bring my friends that were STEM professionals to the school so they could see them. And then I decided to formalize the organization because, one, kids need to see what the options are for them, right?
Yeah.
And also, I wanted to create something that would last beyond my lifetime. And so having something more formal to just, the reason why we call SEM Link, because in a nutshell, we connect kids to the STEM community.
Wow.
To do STEM career exploration, hands-on STEM, supporting science fair. So it really is my love to expose as many youth as possible, especially kids that look like me, because I'm a black woman, right? And want to have more black STEM professionals. And so that is the nutshell of what we do and why the work is how it started and why it's so important to me.
It's so crazy because, when I was at FAM, I felt like all my friends were engineers. My roommate was an engineer. And it, just sitting back, but it wasn't until I got to FAM that I saw that diversity in those different spaces. Before it's like, well, what's an engineer? What does an engineer do? And so me being able to see those things, because even for me, my parents were like, oh, you need to be a pharmacist. And I'm sitting here at the School of Pharmacy asleep, because I wasn't engaged in it. It was difficult for me to be engaged with it. And so when you talk about the impact of seeing that and talking about how smart and intelligent these kids are, like, really help us to see it. I mean, what got you into STEM and wanting to be an engineer?
You're right about role models. Like, black people, no matter what socioeconomic level you're from. I grew up in Miami. I knew two STEM professionals. My friend's dad, that was a chemist, and my aunt, that's a microbiologist. And so for me, I've always loved math and science. Growing up in Miami-Dade County Public Schools,
Woo woo.
my sixth grade teacher, Mrs. Richardson, told my mom Takiwa is really good at math and science, and you should encourage her to do those. So I always loved math and science. It was in 10th grade in Mrs. Shy's chemistry class where I discovered chemistry was my favorite STEM discipline. Just something about the experimentation, blowing up things, the math that's connected to chemistry.
Yeah.
And so, but I know that for me, even though I didn't do all the things that they say to raise STEM professionals, for me, my love of math and science was enough. But for most kids, it's not, unless you meet somebody that's doing it, especially that looks like you, or is in a field similar, because there are some fields that kids are not going to see anybody that looks like them, right? But just seeing somebody doing it makes it feel more tangible, helps you understand, helps you can make better choices in college. I just say my love of math and science was enough to get me major in STEM, but not everybody, that's enough. Sometimes they need the encouragement and support of adults. Sometimes they need support of other kids. So it's one of those things, like, if you can see it, you can be it. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like my old boss would always say, you know, you can't be what you don't see. You know, it's the same thing, but wow. So what did you see though? It's like, so you're teaching and you're seeing these intelligent students, and you're thinking, okay, they could really be great in this STEM universe. But what did you see that said, you know what, I need to create a nonprofit. I need to create something tangible that these students can touch and that can really elevate just their roles in the STEM universe?
You know, the main thing that I saw, which is so interesting, because this is 2002, 2003, so it wasn't even social media like it is now, where they have all these other influences. It was really kids just naming things that they saw around them, their parents, what was on television. So when I was having conversations with the kids, the big things were the athletes and the entertainers. Or when they were naming regular careers, it was a teacher, a lawyer, an accountant, and all those professions are great. You know, there's a kid I met at that time that was doing well in math. It never even dawned on him that he could do anything in STEM. And so really, it's about what kids see and what's around them and the adults that are in their lives.
Well, you know, because one of the things that I thought about, and I've, in pockets of black people who are in STEM, technology, science, math, whatever it is, they're always talking about just the impact of just creating, right? Creating. And I remembered I was talking to one of my friends, and he was talking about how he wasn't a big fan of the facial recognition. And I was like, why not? And he was like, well, it's kind of like our laws that we have in place now, right? They were designed by a certain group of people for a certain group of people. And it excludes us, which if something does go wrong in terms of police looking for you, then how much more does that confusion with black people get? Like, so his whole point was, you know, this facial recognition software was created by white people. And so it's going to work much more efficiently for white people. Now you're seeing reports of it working differently for blacks. And so when I see that, it brings STEM to life for me in terms of why we need to be engaged in this process, because if we're not, we're getting left out. Those doors are closing on us, and it's impacting us on the back end as well.
Yeah, and I don't know how the narrative has changed, but black people have been STEM professionals and inventing stuff forever. From the pyramids.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that we do in math and science today are from ancient Egyptians and ancient African societies, that pharmacy symbol. And from that day, we've been inventing. If you look at the patent office, every year there are black inventors creating and doing things. And so I have my own thoughts about why the narrative has changed, but reminding kids that from day one, people that look like you have been scientists, engineers, inventors.
George Washington Carver, Booker T. Washington, Charles Drew. I mean, we can literally go down
Or
the
even,
list.
Lonnie Johnson of the Super Soaker.
Boom.
Now that I have all these hits. But I even have a friend that's working on a patent.
Yeah.
So we have been doing it, and we still continue to do it. And so just having that reminder of talking about the dead scientists to remind them, but also showing them the scientists that are doing it now. And that's the great thing about social media now, is that you're seeing that scientists have a diversity of interests. They look like you, like Leland Melvin, the former football player that's an astronaut.
Yeah.
So just changing that narrative that, yes, there are some scientists that are nerds. I have a friend. He looked like a nerd.
Yeah.
We got it. Like, it is what it is. But there are also scientists and engineers that you wouldn't even know they were scientists and engineers. So having that narrative that it is okay to follow the path that you're interested in.
And I mean, it's such a. So I even think back. So there's a client that I work with, and she met Barack Obama while he was in office. She was named one of the top 150 scientists in America. She's a black woman. She's a professor over at Auburn, lives here in Atlanta. Her husband teaches in the STEM field as well. And I sit back and I see them, and the first thing that I told her, because she was talking about really branding and talking about a lot of the work that they're doing, and my first thought is, I mean, you sat down with Barack Obama. He said you were one of the best in this country. Like, that's like straight bragging rights, because I think we're in a place where, there's always been a divide in terms of have and have-nots based on information, right? But we're in a day and age where information is so readily available to us. And it's like, for me, when I see that and I see her standing next to Barack Obama and they're shaking hands and he has his big, his real big smile on it, and she has a Kool-Aid smile because she's like, I can't believe, I'm a top 150 scientist in America and I'm shaking his hand. Like, I mean, that for me, that's huge. It was at that moment that I was like, man, maybe I should have went to school and, got me a STEM degree, because, I mean, it's, I think there has to be, we've got to celebrate great minds like we celebrate great talent on the sports fields. We've got to get to that point where we change this back, because we all weren't athletes.
We all weren't. And I was telling my friend, I laughed, a colleague at Morehouse School of Medicine. I'm sure it's out there because, kids post on social media. But they had a end of their summer science research program, and they were celebrating all of the students from high school to the medical students that were doing summer research.
Yeah.
They had a tent, they had a DJ, they had karaoke, and I was like, what is happening here? I was super excited because those are the parties that athletes get, right?
Yeah.
And so he was like, I don't know if we'll have the money to do this next year. I'm like, you have to, because if we want kids to know that science is just another career path and you're celebrated, those kids were doing their photo bots, they were doing the dance contest, they were doing karaoke, and it just really normalized STEM, right? Yeah. That if you do well in STEM, you can party just like everybody else.
Yeah, and I think, going back to what you were saying about inventions and about celebrating it's, there's so many things that affect us as a community, and we have to have people in our community that not only have the mindset of finding cures, right, but also have the hearts and a level of understanding to where it doesn't become so much of a money thing. I mean, capitalism's there; it's going to be there, but I think it's different when those inventors are people who have hearts for that community. And I sit back and look at what we've been able to do throughout history, and it's like, I was talking last show about my wife's I think it's her 4th or 5th great grandfather. I mean, his father was born a slave in this country, but he graduated from Yale's medical school. First black to do so, second black in this country with a medical degree. And it's like, I look at how that affected her generation. And I mean, so much of what you do, you're changing generations of people.
Never thought of that. I just wanted to help kids at one school in Atlanta, and it's just like a snowball. Like, what is happening? This is just for these one kids. For me, it's going back to that village that raised us, a village raised me.
Yeah.
And taking responsibility for other people's children. So you can't do what you used to do, right? You can't feed and clothe and have all the kids in your car. But you can care enough to make sure that kids are exposed to things, they have access, they have resources, and that they're equipped with the tools and the confidence that they need. That's something that we can do without having the hands-on stuff that we had back in the day, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's my way of being part of Kids Village that helped raise them, right? So I'm part of the village that helps raise STEM professionals by giving them a vision of what they can do and connecting them to STEM professionals.
But that's powerful because, like, it's so funny. I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and we were talking about the number of young black men that were being arrested and different things. And my thing was, I really wasn't feeling what he was saying. I was like, look, man, I'm from those environments. You ain't, you might be black, but you ain't from there. So, I love you, bro, but you wrong, And he was like, well, what helped you get out, And I thought back to the people who fed my dream, because sometimes everybody's not going to have the money to give you. But if they can impart hope and inspiration and motivation there and feeding that dream of being in STEM, like, to me, that's just as important as saying, okay, here's $10, go get something to eat. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it gives you, it helps you to say, you know what, I can hold on to this dream. I can fight for this dream, and I can aspire to be where this dream leads me to be. Like, those are the things that I get excited about. So that's why when I see what you're doing, and I'm just like, I even think back to when we met, and, you had your class and I had mine, and we were working with, what's the organization? It's slipping my mind right now.
I'm trying not to say it, but United Way.
Yeah. But, we were there, and I remember the kids left your class, they came into mine, they were like, are you going to have worksheets too? And I was like, yeah, what you think? You just going to come in here and sit down and I'm just going to talk? Like, no, man, we here to feed y'all, that bigger picture.
They didn't even have pens. It was like, I know it's summer, but we talking about careers. We going to vision what you're going to be in the future. You don't even have pens.
You thought you were just going to kick it. Come in here and kick it. But it was crazy because there was one kid in that class that I was with who hadn't said anything. And by the end, he started off with, yeah, my name is so-and-so. Yeah, I rep, yeah. And I'm like, rep, boy, okay. And I get it, he young. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to be a football player. But by the end of, my presentation, he was like, man, I want to do what you do. How I do what you do, I want to be Dontaye. You make money? And it's like, I think the more that our kids are exposed and can see that, okay, you can make a living and a decent living, and a living that will span a lifetime instead of a career. What entertainment, athletics, 4 or 5 years, 4 or 5 good years.
And you still got to save your coins for when it's over.
Yeah, this is not a knock on athletes.
It is what it is.
Yeah, they were saying the average lifespan of a running back is 2 years. I'm like, 2 years? And then I got to find a new job? So, yeah, I just, I don't know. I think when I kind of see those things, and that's why it's so important, for me to even have a show like this to where we can talk about the things you do. And for SEM Link, where do you see that going?
I dream big.
Yeah, dream, sister, dream. Dream.
And this is the year I'm manifesting my wildest dreams.
Hey-oh.
And the other thing, I'm walking through the world with the confidence of a mediocre white man. But,
Happy Indigenous People Day.
Indigenous. Oh, well,
Yeah, I wasn't going to say it. I heard what you said, but I wasn't going to go there. But I'm sorry.
But, I guess so. So, for me, I've been doing this work since 2005.
Wow. 14 years.
Yeah. So, when people are like, you don't have the tea, I'm like, nah, this is not a phase for me. This is not a hustle because this is where I think the funding is. Because, black women don't get funded like they should.
Yeah.
Another topic for another show. But for me, the heart of it is really exposing as many youth as I can to the diversity of STEM professionals and the diversity of STEM professionals that pursue them So, I mean, for me as a black woman, I can't have an org that does not serve black kids. But I don't only serve black kids. And so, for me, because kids that don't look like me need to know that people that look like me are STEM professionals, to change their images of what they're taught, of what we can be. So, right now, my main focus, you know, it shifts all the time. But since everybody and their mama is doing STEM right now, we're still doing some of our basics, like our career fair, supporting schools. But I'm moving to something that has been our passion since day one, but people are paying attention to now, which focuses on STEM research. 'Cause like you said, there are problems that need to be solved, and all that comes from research and innovation, right? And so we have our experimental design program that supports STEM fairs. We provide STEM fair judges, and 2 years ago I got money from Jack and Jill Foundation to develop an online course.
Wow.
So this year we are going to be in about 5 to 10 Metro Atlanta schools where high school students get a chance to enroll in our online course. And it teaches them how to conduct a research project for science fair with the mindset as if a research scientist would do it, just with an age-appropriate topic. And so I'm excited to see how we will improve the quality of science fairs, because I've judged Intel, and we're not there. And we can be. We're smart enough. The last time I judged it, a black woman hugged me and was like, "I'm happy you're here." The kids that were looking like me, kids of color, black kids, Hispanic kids, Middle Eastern kids, were happy when I came up and was their judge, right? Because we're not there. And so making sure that we're in these higher level competitions, and it does not have to be, you know, what they say, you have to have access to a lab. You just have to have a good research project, a topic you want to study, and learn the process of quality work, scholarly research, writing your lab notebook, presenting orally and on paper. So those are the things we teach in that program. So we have the course. I'm actually working on the book because the course costs, right?
Yeah.
I can't give the course to everybody, but you can purchase this book and help your kids. So more accessibility, because we've done that from day one, but I was like, if we go into digital learning, we can impact more kids.
Yeah.
Another thing that I'm starting, which is also funded by Jack and Jill Foundation, which, you know, I really appreciate that relationship, because it's like black people funding black people, right?
Yeah.
We're starting this STEM in the City workshop series because
STEM in the city.
we're changing the face of what scientists do. I'm a chemical engineer by training, but I have a really close friend, an SC Environment board member and a FAMU alum. She's a double HBC alum. She went to Alcorn undergrad. I might as well give her a shout out, Dr. LaToya Miles.
Do it.
She's an environmental scientist, and she was like, we need more black people in environmental science, right?
Yeah.
Because that impacts our air, our water quality, and, you know, environmental justice.
And where are they
racism
dumping stuff at?
in our neighborhoods. So we started this STEM in the City workshop series, which introduces kids to, I don't know what they're called, but scientists that work outside, right?
Yeah.
So earth and environmental scientists, I think that's the name for it. So we're having our first one on urban birders in Piedmont Park, where 2 wildlife biologists are going to teach kids about urban birding. Now, I don't know any birds in the city other than pigeons, but apparently there's some birds with fall migration patterns that go through Atlanta. That's the extent of I know about birding, but these are what these 2 environmental wildlife biologists are going to teach the kids, Jason Ward and Karina Newsom. We're going to do a soil scientist, Stefan Thomas. He actually helped us do World Water Day. We went to Stonewall Tell, one of our partner schools, and the kids did soil samples on their school site. We're going to do some water quality. We're going to do some that she doesn't consider herself a wildlife biologist, but she does make sure that people are aware of the plants and animals around them. So all of those things that we need black people in those fields, right? And so, but kids don't think of those sciences as, because I know in my early work, being biased as a chemical engineer, I only expose kids to chemistry and engineering. But there are so many STEM fields, And I'm a firm believer that instead of pushing kids to what we think is the trend, we need to expose kids to as much as they can and let them make the choice based on what they're good at and what they're interested in.
Yeah, because, I mean, I even sit back, and it's so funny, like, for my wife, she, I think about just the opportunities that she had because her father was a veterinarian, owned his own clinic.
Mm-hmm.
So she's 8, 9 years old helping him to deliver calves, you know, and I'm sitting over here like, man, like, that's what you're doing, you know. In her teen years, she's learning how to stitch animals up, you know, and that was just a part of it that she fell in love with. But instead of doing it, you know, with a veterinarian clinic, she decided, well, I want to do it with women. I want to be there. I want to be there with them throughout the process. So she decided to become an OBGYN. But it's like, it's just that exposure, you know, just being able to have that exposure. And so when I see these things, I'm just like, man, like, what do we, like, how do we, you know, and I know a lot of it is what you do, and it's what I do, speaking at a lot of these events and, you know, helping these kids to bloom and blossom and take their dreams by storm. But I'll be honest, I mean, sometimes I can look at my field and it can seem like overwhelming. You know, I spoke down at Valdosta State to a group of PR students, and, you know, there was only one black boy in the class, and he came up to me after and he, you know, dapped me up and he said, man, I don't think you realize what it means for me to see somebody like you and in your position, because, you know, when I'm interning, when I'm looking for opportunities, you know, everybody that I'm speaking with doesn't resemble you. So me just knowing there's a black guy out here who owns a PR firm, like he said, man, that changes the way I see myself. And I'm just like, God, I got a whole lot more out of that than he probably got out of my whole speech, you know. But I mean, it can just seem like a lot because you go into these spaces, and to your point, you just don't see it, and it's like constantly just wanting to help the kids. Like, you know, what can I give y'all that y'all can just take and run with? So.
Yeah, and you forget because, you know, I went to FAMU. You know, my network is full of black scientists and engineers. But you forget people don't always have that. And when you go into the workplace, in my internships, I was the only black. There are some STEM education spaces I go to. I'm the only black woman.
Yeah.
And so that's the reality of it. But showing that it doesn't matter. Like, you're in that space. You belong in that space. You're smart enough. You're talented. You deserve to be in that space. And so just letting them know they can be in that space, but feeling more comfortable in that space. Because a lot of times, we're the smartest person in that room. Even though we're the only one in that space. But,
you know, and that's why I think that, you know, that line from the movie The Help, you is smart, you is, what was the middle one?
Important.
Well, important was the last one, wasn't it?
You know, I ain't watched that movie but more than once because I have a problem with The Help.
Yeah.
But I love Viola Davis, so
yeah,
I
but it was
it.
that part where I was just like, you know, we've got to tell each other those things. Mm-hmm. We've got to affirm those things. Like, so much of our history has been washed out that, I mean, it takes people, because I'm just really big on context. Like, what is the context of this? And like I was saying, back to my wife's story, like, when I think about the context of her and what led to her being who she is, like, that just blows me away because I don't want to have that. You know, I'm the first person in my family to be born with all of my rights recognized under the U.S. government. My mother was born without her right to vote. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, I even think of my grandmother, and I don't share this. I share the story, but, you know.
Come on. That's what Beyond the Brand is, sharing these stories.
I shared it in a public space, and I almost broke down when I won an award. I was like, oh, maybe I'm not ready to share this. But my grandmother grew up in Americus, Georgia, and chemistry was her favorite subject. I found this out when I was in college, majoring in chemical engineering. She's like, I'm so proud of you. But she was in the 40s growing up in South Georgia, and her father died. That changes things. But realizing that my grandmother could not be, you know, you don't think about these barriers that the generations before us had. And we still have our barriers and issues, but the simple fact that I can go to FAMU and pursue an engineering degree. And so looking at those things and how there are things that we have overcome, but we're still fighting some of our ancestors' fight, but we also have our own fights with new things that
Yeah.
happen.
And I mean, that's the part that I think can kind of trip me up and get to me, is just seeing that although the fight's evolved, like it's still there. It's still very much there. And I just think about the opportunities that I have now that my ancestors didn't have. And I mean, that was one of the reasons why I said, you know what, I've got to become a business owner, because there aren't a lot of us in this space. And it's hard. You know what I'm saying? There's sometimes I go home and I'm just like, man, like I wish I had some money somewhere, you know, that somebody could just give me, and everything just blows up and it's all fancy dancy. I can blow hundreds of thousands of dollars away as I'm trying to build my business and I don't feel it, you know. Like I wish I had those things. I mean, I wish I had free labor, you know, like it's so much of that stuff. But it's like, you know what, like we're where we are and who we are for a reason.
Yeah,
And
for me, I knew that there was a certain way that I felt that we should have kids think about STEM careers.
yeah,
There are certain impacts I wanted to make in STEM education, and I run STEM educational programs and for other people, and I realized that the authentic to who I am and what I want to accomplish, I have to have my own.
yeah.
Even my last position that I ran, it was successful, but I ignored my boss a lot. And I was like,
Mute.
when my friend was like, did you tell her? No, I would have lost my job. I just quietly did what I thought was best.
Yeah.
Because it was someone that didn't look like me telling me what was best for kids that looked like me. And I was like, that ain't happening. I'm going to go back to my office and act like we didn't even have this conversation.
But I mean, sometimes you have to have that, right? Because it's so crazy. Like I remember, you know, I worked in television news for 10 years, and I remember pitching these stories that to me I knew were important. They were important to my community, and being told nobody cares about that story, Dontaye. Like, you got anything else? Nobody's gonna care about that. And I've taken the same stories here, you know, with my firm, and we'll launch those bad boys on social media. And I mean, on just one of the platforms, we've got 1.3 million views, you know, and it's still climbing. And so it's like, at some point, we've got to trust our guts, you know, and I think the reason we can walk out into these spaces and be successful is because, to your point, we are intelligent, you know, we are important, and we are innovative. And when we allow ourselves to shine in those spaces, we change the game. Like, and that's just the reality of it.
Yeah, I tell myself I always have ideas. I have to, like, tell myself, slow it down. You only can do so much. I have a mentor that's like, you have to create space and keep space for the things that are important. I'm like, everything's important. She's like, no, it's not.
Yeah, it's some foolishness. You got to duck and dodge. You know, I woke up this morning. I was like, I can't talk about that this morning. Can't let you have my peace. You know, I got to keep a safe space for that peace. So, I mean, it's just powerful, and I'm just grateful and I know it's recorded. I know we got 50 million cameras on us, but just being able to have these conversations, because I just feel like they're needed. I think, you know, I call them our children, you know. I may not have birthed you or made you, but y'all are my kids. And I just feel like the kids have to be able to hear these, because we're having the conversations. They just don't have access to them, you know.
And it's important. I think we do have to go back to they're being our kids, whether you birth them or not, whether they're members of your families or not. They're still children, and they are impacted by the decisions that adults make.
Yeah.
So are you going to ignore them, or are you going to support them so they can be these brilliant people that we know they can be?
Yeah, and that's what I have to be reminded of daily. You know, I got my neighbor calling code enforcement on me about the length of my grass, and I'm like, hey, bruh, that's not the battle I want this morning. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it can be just so funny how, you know, it's the little things that can try to rob you of your purpose and of your joy, and just being able to see those things. And so I really appreciate just everything that you brought to this station, everything that you're putting out into the world, you know, because, I mean, we need it. Our kids need it.
Yeah, and part of it, too, and I tell my friends all the time, we as black women are brilliant.
Brilliant.
We solve the
beautiful.
world. and we have to show our own receipts.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is, doing this work quietly for years, but knowing like it is okay to say, I am making this impact. My friend is making this impact. These are the things I believe STEM education should be. These are the things that are important. These are the things that we need to do to have a diverse STEM workforce.
Yeah.
And also sharing the ups and downs of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Last
It's a
year I
beast.
was like, man, I need to find a job and a sugar daddy. But, I got this note from this kid about
the game changer.
another game changer, about the impact of having a scientist that looked like him come to his school. How can you quit and go get a sugar daddy when a kid is showing you that? So it's those moments where you just have to work out, have your group of sister friends.
But I mean, it's one of those things to where what's the word I'm looking for? Is that perseverance, right? Because the reality is you left a job, you could be making six figures and thinking, you know what, if I can get back to this, making this type of money, but you just don't think about things from the business side. So you make $100,000, but you got $150,000 worth of business bills. You know what I'm saying? And business expenses. And you like, dang, man, I took a hit this year. It's like, yeah, you just start to see, okay, I've got to triple that in order to make that baseline of income. But it's like, I think the more and more that we talk about these things and we share these things and we can inspire one another by sharing our stories.
Yeah, because I also have a consulting firm. And people are like, why did you start that? I can't give everything away for free.
That's right.
And so, there's certain things, and I'm like, I'm going to quote Eat 40. I'm showing my blackness in HBCU, where he's like, you got to pay me or pay me no, never mind.
Yeah.
So there are some things I want to do in STEM education, and you got to pay me or pay me no, never mind.
That's right.
And
bring that money bag over, huh?
Yes, and those go through, my consulting firm because,
Amen.
I like executive toast. I'll admit, those are $300,000 to $1,000. I like to get on planes and nonprofit work. You really do it from the heart, right? And so, but I was like, I need to get on these planes. I need to get my passport stamped. So how can I use my experience to make some cash? And a lot of times I don't do enough in my consulting firm because I love this work.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm born to do. But the reality of it is, even as entrepreneurs, we have responsibilities and goals, and gotta do that.
Money make the world go round. So, but the heart is in the right place, and so that's what we really love. How can people keep up with you? How can people find you?
I am on social media a lot. You can follow me on LinkedIn and on Instagram at Takiwa Smith. You can follow SCM Link's work. We're probably the most active on Instagram at SCM Link. And so, because I said we got to brand ourselves, the beauty of social media. And so I do a good job of branding myself and the work of our org. And those are the best ways you can find us.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. This has been a great experience for me, just even being able to learn just more about STEM and the impact that it's having on kids. But Takiwa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And if you are tuning in and joining us on YouTube, make sure you I said live. I meant to say subscribe, like, comment, share, do all those things so that we can really continue to bring these stories to life and make the impact. But I want to thank you all for joining us right here on Hits 92.3. I am Dontaye Carter with Beyond the Brand.